I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime, and this is Currents.
Learning to help people heal after abortion.
I often say, if you want to know what hell is like, ask somebody who's suffering because of an abortion.
There are branches in the church that continue to grow. We'll hear all about them.
To understand the ecclesial movements and communities, I think we need to go all the way back to the beginning of the church.
And it's not we are the world, but some local artists come together to help Haiti. Well, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. More than 1 million abortions happen each year in the U.S., an average of around 3,700 each day.
And although the church is doing all it can to address that, what does not get as much attention is what happens after an abortion. Yesterday, we met several people who talked about that in a very powerful way.
At St. Joseph Seminary in Yonkers, professionals from the healthcare field, along with priests and deacons, got a chance to learn how to help both women and men after an abortion.
Many priests, they have this idea in their head that they're being compassionate, or they don't want to talk about it because they're afraid they're going to hurt somebody who's suffering. And our message is that that's not true. They take it out on God and they talk about,
The message is really to encourage the priests, the deacons, and those involved in ministry to be, on one side, courageous to speak about an issue that has affected millions and millions of people, and presumably many, many parishioners.
The problem, obviously, with abortion is that people deny the impact of abortion, and especially years ago, there was just such silence surrounding abortion.
Initially, the word abortion is not necessarily going to be mentioned. That's not going to be part of the presenting problem.
And often the difficulties that they have in their marriages, in raising their children, and relating to other people, even in the workplace, are related to these deeper traumas that come from having participated in abortion in some way. And we have to be much more attentive to that.
Countless women go for help because of an abortion, and they're told that that's not what's bothering them.
The most cruel thing there is to lie to these people, because they know in their heart that the reality of what that was. And so to say it was okay is just horrific. And certainly society does that.
So there's a misconception out there that most women are okay with their abortions, and that's just not true.
I wonder how my son or daughter will look like today.
Very often people who have had an abortion have been lied to, cajoled, tricked. They are just as much victims as the baby in the sense that they have been betrayed.
Woman's experiencing that in her body, so there's often an acute experience of trauma. However, because the man is not present for the procedure or he's in the waiting room, that does not mean that he's not impacted by that abortion experience.
It's surprising how men suffer. They suffer differently. Sometimes they suffer because they're the ones that were responsible and they suffer that guilt. Or they're the ones that could have stopped it.
Everything in our culture is going to tell them they shouldn't have any feelings about it. If anything, they should just feel relief, and they should certainly not have any say in the decision to abort.
Our clergy are really representatives, obviously, of God to us.
They're often on the front lines in reaching out.
And by them reaching out and talking about God's love and God's mercy and inviting people back into the church, they can mend that relationship that post-abortive people had that has, severed their relationship with God.
I think it's something we really need to take a deeper and deeper look at.
We have to really have a open, loving, caring hearts. And that's what the church wants to project, the merciful love and the heart of Christ. That has to be center in what we present to those who come to us for help.
The Lord said, the truth shall make you free. And I think it's essential that we speak about the reality of abortion, the truth of it, the pain that it causes, the implications of an abortion, but also to speak just as much about God's mercy and forgiveness.
I was interviewed for something else last year, and the woman said something to me like, "Oh, did you feel guilty because of your Catholic faith?" And no, I didn't feel guilty because of my Catholic faith. I felt guilty because I saw my dead son lying in the bed next to me. I felt guilty because I participated in the death of my child. And quite the opposite of my Catholic faith instilling guilt in me, my Catholic faith is the thing that brought me to forgiveness and mercy and healing.
As Catholics, we can pray for those who have died. In fact, we can even ask those who have died to pray for us. There's a joy to that as Catholics, to know that someday I will hold my son or my daughter again.
I often say, if you want to know what hell is like, ask somebody who's suffering because of an abortion, because you truly feel like you're living in hell. And to be freed from that hell by the mercy of God and to actually reach healing. And there's just like, you have to let other people know that they don't have to live like that. That's the goal.
And we will have much more about that discussion over on our blog. Just go to currentsny.net and click on Riding the Wave.
But stay tuned for now. There's much more Currents coming up straight ahead. St. Vincent's Hospital in Manhattan is set to close. Or is it? We'll have that, plus the rest of the day's headlines when we return. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Coming up just a bit later, help for Haiti. Some local musicians, well, they all team up for a good cause.
But first, let's turn to the day's headlines. Well, on the brink of closure, St. Vincent's Hospital in Manhattan may have a glimmer of hope. A civil rights attorney has filed a lawsuit in state Supreme Court seeking to block the closure, arguing that it has not been approved by the health department. The suit was filed on behalf of patients, employees, and area residents, and it comes a day after St. Vincent's laid off 1,000 workers. The clergy sex abuse scandal that has hit the Catholic Church in Europe and the U.S. has made its way now to South America. Monsignor Luis Barbosa, an 83-year-old priest in the Diocese of Penedo, Brazil, was arrested after allegations that he abused boys as young as 12 years old. Well, in the wake of the sex abuse scandal in Ireland, Pope Benedict last month wrote a letter to the Irish Church calling on the faithful to turn to St. John Vianney for a clearer understanding of what the priesthood is all about. Well, next week, they'll have a chance to do that, literally, as the relics of St. John Vianney will tour Ireland. The relics will make stops in 4 Irish cities between April 25th and 28th for veneration of the faithful. St. John Vianney is the patron saint of all priests. Well, the huge volcanic ash cloud that has left thousands of air travelers stranded in Europe has also caused travel woes for missionaries working there. Global Europe Mission has about 300 missionaries in Europe and says a number of its people were left stranded by the volcano. A group of 26 missionaries is headed to Romania, but they were left stranded in Chicago because of that ash cloud. And members of another mission group were unable to fly as well. Nearly 7 million airline passengers worldwide have been affected by the volcanic eruption. It's estimated that delays and cancellations of flights are costing the 5 largest U.S. airlines $21.9 million a day.
A proposed immigration law in Arizona has met with heated criticism from a California Catholic leader. Cardinal Roger Mahoney, Archbishop of Los Angeles, says the new law, which would require police to arrest suspected illegal immigrants who cannot provide proper documentation, useless and mean-spirited. Cardinal Mahoney also says the law reverts to German, Nazi, and Russian communist techniques that require people to turn one another in to authorities. The Los Angeles Times reports the bill would not require people to turn one another in, but confirmed the law does require police to ask for documents if there is reasonable suspicion about their legal status. Arizona Governor Jan Brewer is expected to sign the bill into law. In Virginia, Governor Bob McDonnell has proposed a budget amendment that would restrict state funding of abortions, and Catholic bishops in the state are supporting the move. The Virginia Catholic Conference says the amendment should be passed because it is a, quote, unprecedented opportunity to eliminate many abortions funded by the state. The Virginia General Assembly will consider the bill tomorrow. A Christian student group that was denied recognition by a California university has taken its case all the way to the Supreme Court. The Christian Legal Society was shut out because the University of California's Hastings College of Law says the group's statement of faith violated the school's ban on sexual orientation discrimination. The group prevents anyone from engaging in sexual conduct outside of a marriage between a man and a woman from being a member. The nation's high court heard arguments in the case Monday. And finally, a middle school in Missouri burned to the ground earlier this month. Students missed a week of classes, but now, thanks to a local church, class is back in session. Roche Madden has more on how the students are adjusting.
It's gone a lot better than I thought. I thought it was going to be a little rough, you know, all these new rooms.
The church has almost everything the students need: a gym, small auditorium, a really nice lunchroom, and plenty of classrooms.
It's just been a shock. We're all kind of still stunned.
Saturday night, April 10th, the Fredericktown Middle School was destroyed by fire. 2 juveniles have been arrested. It's been an emotional time for students and teachers.
Teachers are made to teach, and you know, they're special people, and they've been hurting because of the tragedy of the building, and you know, a lot of them went to school in that building, you know, as much as teaching in it, and they're thrilled to be back with the kids and excited to be back doing what they do best.
School officials scrambled and quickly learned the pastor at Calvary Temple Church said they could use his facilities for the rest of the school year. It was payback time for the church.
A few years ago, we had a devastation here. We lost basically all of our church in a fire. I think you all covered that back in the mid-90s, and we had church at the school. So what goes around comes around.
The ordeal has been a learning experience for the kids.
You really don't know what you have until it's gone.
Some now know when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
You gotta take what you got, so I'm pretty much just accepting whatever we have and trying to make something good out of it.
Officials are now searching for a place they can use for all of next school year.
We've got some old factories that are not being used. We'll look at trailers. We'll look at every option we can think of.
And that is Roche Madden reporting.
So cool with the church just opening their doors there, and it's just a very nice story. Out of tragedy comes something positive.
Yeah, and coming full circle in a way, as he alluded to in his soundbite there as well. So it's just nice to know, like you say, that people are extending a helping hand, and that also they'll hopefully find some space in some empty buildings so that the kids can have a more, you know, solid home for the future.
In the future, absolutely. Well, stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up. Just ahead, Bishop Caggiano is here to show us that there's more than one way to get more involved in the church.
There are 28 different ecclesial movements and communities in this diocese.
Goodness.
It's like the colors of the rainbow.
Welcome back. Well, this week we're taking a closer look at a branch of the church that is really growing, but it still might be a mystery to some people: ecclesial movements. What are they, and what do they mean for the church? You're about to find out.
Last night, Natalia Ortiz introduced us to one thriving group, the Neo-Catechumenal Way, and tonight she explores what movements like these can mean to Brooklyn and their significance for the wider church with Auxiliary Bishop Frank Caggiano.
Bishop Frank, please tell us about the ecclesial movements and groups within the Diocese of Brooklyn.
My pleasure to do so. In order to understand the ecclesial movements and communities, I think we need to go all the way back to the beginning of the church. And to remember that the Spirit kind of is like the soul, the animator that moves the church and the people of God to express their faith in different ways. And all through the centuries, the Spirit has helped the people who believe in the Lord Jesus to express their faith by coming together. We're familiar with some of those structures: parishes, schools, religious congregations where women or men come together with a particular charism. In our modern age, these ecclesial movements or communities are lay people who come together because they want to give expression to something very important to their faith.
Okay.
And they are, in many, many ways, living it in very exciting and different ways.
So give us an example of some of the ecclesial groups within the diocese. We've featured here Jóvenes de Valor, the Neo-Catechumenists. Who else should be aware is out there, and why should we be aware that they're out there?
There are 28 different ecclesial movements and communities in this diocese.
Goodness.
It's like the colors of the rainbow.
Really?
Yeah, and they're doing different work, whether they're witnessing to life, or they are helping people to relearn their faith, or they're coming together to work for peace and justice. Why it's important for us to know is because together they represent the whole spectrum of what it means to be a disciple. They're kind of like a check to our own lives. Those of us who perhaps live in parishes and we're faithful as parishioners and active in our churches, but are not necessarily living in any particular community or group, they remind us of all the different aspects of what it means to be a Christian. And they challenge us in some ways to do that.
Right. And so a lot of these groups came about after Vatican II, is that correct?
Yes.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think because there is this ferment that the Spirit is stirring up in our hearts to renewal. And renewal begins with witness. To be able to put our words into action. And in many different ways, a lot of these ecclesial movements were born because there were a group of confreres and people who believe the same thing passionately, are willing to witness to it, despite the cost. So even in our diocese, for example, you mentioned Jóvenes de Valor.
Yes.
Well, they are in the charismatic tradition, at least they began that way, but they are wonderful, hundreds of young people who are evangelizing on the streets, going into the subways, singing the praises of God and learning their faith. It's a magnificent gift to the diocese.
For the average Catholic that's out there that perhaps is not as in touch with the church, that maybe doesn't go to Mass every Sunday, there's a lot of lapsed Catholics out there that we're trying to reach actually through this show. What do you say to them about these ecclesial movements? Perhaps the word ecclesial to them is actually foreign.
Well, the word ecclesia really is a Greek derivative of the word church.
Okay.
So the movements and communities of our church. What I would say to them is you are welcome. You are welcome to come and explore what it means to be a Catholic Christian, wherever you're comfortable. In our churches, in our parishes, that's where the church really lives its life in its most basic form. Our parishes are filled with wonderful people, priests, religious, lay leaders, and faithful, who come together Sunday after Sunday and throughout the week, living what it means to be discipleship. All our communities and parishes are different. Because they're made up with different people.
Right.
Find a place, explore, search, be curious, look, visit, and see where you're comfortable. The ecclesial movements and communities are another place to look.
Okay. It sounds like you're saying that there's something for everyone.
Absolutely. Oh, it's the beauty of being Catholic.
which is something beautiful that I am discovering myself actually now, is that there are so many different groups that kind of appeal to so many different age groups or interests that people have. What other groups are out there that you think people might find interesting?
Well, among the ecclesial movements and communities, you have Pax Christi, for example, that is very much devoted to the works of justice and peace.
I see.
And in many ways, given the society in which we live, the great inequalities that people experience, the injustices that people live with day in and day out, that is a place where many young people find themselves drawn because they can put into action the words of Jesus and the mission of Jesus. But that's not alone. You have Communion and Liberation that's really devoted to not only witnessing to the faith, but also learning about their faith, working with young adults. So it's young people working with young people.
Okay.
There's so many different places where they could look.
Well, now that you've been here and you've explained just a glimpse of everything that the diocese has to offer, I hope that the viewers out there will feel compelled to at least explore all their options and kind of dabble and discover what's out there for them to learn more.
And may I just add this?
Yes.
On Saturday, we're going to have Mass, and all the ecclesial movements and communities will come together at St. James. So the hope is that anyone who's curious is welcome to come and see for themselves.
Great. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Take care.
Sort of like an ecclesial movement trade show, it sounds like.
Just about, yeah. It's inviting everybody in. It's always nice to see Bishop Caggiano here as well. And he always has a lot of great insight on a lot of different things that are going on in the diocese. And this is one that, like we said, is probably a mystery to a lot of people. Well, what are these people and what do they do? So hopefully he cleared some of that up there.
Well, I'd heard of Pax Christi before, but I didn't realize it was an ecclesial group, an ecclesial movement.
Neither did I.
You know, I knew sort of some of their mission work, you know, justice and peace and what they were up to, but I didn't know that that was really the term of it, and that was one of the groups that you could elect to be involved in within the Catholic Church.
Yeah, right. And the neo-catechumenal way, as we've talked about before,
you can pronounce
that is a mouthful.
Yes.
So as long as we can pronounce it, we're okay.
That's
but
right.
No, we've talked about them before, and yeah. So there are a lot of different groups out there, and when he said that there are just a couple dozen of these plus. I was kind of floored because there are a lot of people who take part in these movements, and they're not some big mystery. There are people all around us doing good things in the community and in their spiritual lives as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Natalia's written more about these ecclesial movements over on our blog. Just go to currentsny.net and click Riding the Wave.
We'll be right back.
When we return, guitar, voice, choir, and dance all adds up to help for Haiti.
We are expecting enough people to make enough money to help Haiti.
The U.S. military announced yesterday it will end its official relief efforts in Haiti June 1st. Private efforts will continue, however, and today, just over 3 months after the devastating earthquake that killed more than 300,000 people, the need remains great.
It certainly does. Thousands are still struggling to recover, and so last weekend right here in Brooklyn, a group of Haitian Christian artists came together for a unique fundraiser celebrating the land they love.
Today we are here at Brooklyn College to celebrate Haiti. The Haitian artists, they came to me and asked me, we want to put up a concert. We want to have a concert, and we want the Haitian apostolate of the Diocese of Brooklyn to do that, because we want to help Haiti. And I said, well, let's make it happen. In Haiti, we are still suffering from it. And us here, those who lost loved one, they are suffering.
It is an experience that we can't forget, and we're hoping that we can do this more often, singing, praising God, and enjoying our culture in the way that we've always learned how to.
Haiti needs a lot of help. We are expecting enough people to make enough money to help Haiti.
She just lost her son, and she keep up with us. She never missed one day of the choir of practice. She's a very brave woman.
Everybody is doing their best. We have also the children choir.
We're here singing for Haiti, and our piece, Soon I Will Be Done, is how we're gonna conquer and we're gonna meet Jesus, and we're praying. It's relevant because, Haiti's gonna conquer, and, we're gonna rebuild Haiti.
Beautiful voices there.
Certainly, and it's so nice when they can connect, to their faith and to their community. And that woman that was in the piece, to have, lost her son and continue to come to practice and to sing with her, friends is really just a testament to her character and to her faith as well.
And it just really shows her dedication to this and to the relief effort, because of course, as we said, all of this is for Haiti. And, it's just, you can't forget the need that is there. And we see people now, who are still remembering that. And, just because it's not making headlines every day doesn't mean that there aren't still people in need. And there's going to be a great need in Haiti for a long time.
Right.
There was a need before the earthquake.
Precisely.
Yeah, and so, this only made the situation just all that much worse.
And I think that although we will continue to recognize all the other tragedies that continue to happen, the amount of devastation that happened in Haiti, in a place that was already the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, it it does allow for a little bit more room to continue to remind people that, you know, they do need us, they will need us, and just because the U.S. military is no longer there doesn't mean that we as private citizens can't continue to step in and help out on the worldwide stage and the worldwide faith stage.
Right, absolutely, and continue to do that. They really, really need you.
Well, that is it for tonight. Coming up tomorrow, new Catholics gather at the cathedral for a celebratory mass. We'll take you there.
In the meantime, though, remember, we are always online. CurrentsNY.net is the website. You can also follow us on Twitter. You can become our fan on Facebook as well. We're just all over the place. Until next time, I'm Matt McClure.
And I'm Francesca Maxime. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great night.